Dear viewers, Chernobyl Nuclear Plant was built in the city of Pripyat, 100 kilometers away from Kiev, Ukraine, which is completely barren today. At that time, Ukraine was also a part of the Soviet Union. As you all know, this was the era of the Cold War, and the Soviet Union started making many power plants using nuclear energy. One of them was Chernobyl. This power plant consisted of 4 nuclear reactors, which were given the names 1, 2, 3, and 4. This number 4 reactor was built at the end, and today there is a huge dome on top of it. These 4 reactors were capable of producing 1,000 megawatts of electricity, which was enough to meet the electricity demands. In simple words, if we understand the working of these reactors, the water was heated through a nuclear reaction. This water would become steam and run the turbine, and due to the rotation of the turbine, electricity was produced. But since a nuclear reaction is a chain reaction, which means that once it starts, then it cannot be controlled. Therefore, to control this nuclear reaction, 211 control rods were put in each reactor. These control rods are made of a material which absorbs the neutrons, which are released during the nuclear reaction. Because it is these neutrons which, together with the uranium atom, produces the nuclear reaction. When the neutrons stick to the control rods, then the nuclear reaction will automatically slow down. In the case of Chernobyl, these control rods were made of boron carbide, whereas their tip was made of graphite. Remember that this process used to run 24/7, due to which the temperature inside the reactor used to be 1,600 degrees Celsius. This is approximately 30% of the temperature, and due to this reason, it was very important to keep the reactor cool. To do this, water lines were run inside the reactor. This water used to circulate in the reactor with the help of pumps all the time. In the same way, to keep the engine cool, coolant is used. Here, in the reactors of Chernobyl, there was a big design flaw, which probably no one knew about. In the case of a car, the rotation of the water stops as soon as the engine is turned off, but in a nuclear reactor, the rotation of the water should not stop for even a second. Then why shouldn't the nuclear reaction stop? Because even after the reaction stopped, it used to produce heat for a long time. For this, it was important that these water pumps run all the time without any hindrance. Obviously, to run these water pumps, electricity was also required. This electricity was normally supplied from the turbine of the reactor itself. In the case of a power failure, special backup diesel generators were also installed for them. But the problem was that the water pumps would remain closed for 60 seconds while shifting to the diesel generator. Engineers wanted these pumps to remain closed. For this, a safety system was installed in them. The system was such that as soon as the reactor was closed, it would not stop producing electricity immediately. With 1,000 megawatts, the production would gradually decrease. So during this time, the remaining electricity would be used to run the pumps for 60 seconds, and after 60 seconds, the backup generators would run. This system was installed, but its testing was still pending, which was a compulsory process. And that too, only the testing of reactor 4, 1, 2, and 3 were successfully done. It was the evening of April 25, 1986, and preparations were underway to perform this safety test on reactor 4. This test was being done under the supervision of Deputy Chief Engineer Anatoly Dyatlov. This test could not be successful on reactor for the last 2 times. It is said that the Deputy Chief Engineer had to perform this test anyway tonight. According to the rule book, this test will be performed when the reactor would be producing 700 megawatts of power. But normally it would produce 1,000 megawatts. The Deputy Chief Engineer gave the order to install control rods to slow down the reactor. Due to this, the nuclear reaction started to slow down. Everything was running normally till this point, but the control rods were installed too low, due to which the power of the reactor increased from 1,000 to 30 megawatts. To increase the power of the reactor again, the control rods were taken out a little. Now out of the total 211, only 8 control rods were present in the reactor, and this was a violation of the rule book. The rule book said that there should not be less than 15 control rods in the reactor. Due to this violation, the reaction increased rapidly, and the control rods and the power increased from 200 to 1,000 megawatts and reached several thousand megawatts. Due to so much heat, the water in the pipes began to evaporate rapidly, which was actually working to cool the core of the reactor. At the same time, a wave of fear immediately broke out in the control room, and the entire reactor began to vibrate. There was only one solution to control this, that the emergency shut-off button should be pressed, due to which all the control rods would go into the reactor and stop the nuclear reaction. and the engineers did the same. They pressed the emergency shutdown button, but as soon as the control rods went in, the reactor exploded with a powerful explosion. In the seismogram, the intensity of this explosion was recorded at 225 tons TNT blast. April 26, 1986, it was 1 o'clock 26 minutes in the night. Here the question arises that these control rods were put in to slow down the reaction. Then why did they increase the reaction? Actually, this explosion happened due to the graphite on the tip of the control rods. As you learned in the beginning, these control rods were made of boron carbide, but their tip was graphite. Boron carbide can stop the nuclear reaction, but graphite increases the reaction further. Before pressing the emergency shutdown button, the reaction, which was already out of its limit, the graphite tip, increased rapidly, and the tolerance level of the reactor walls ended, and it exploded. 2 engineers were killed on the spot, and 2 people were badly burned. Due to the explosion, the reactor 4 of the plant caught fire. At first, it was considered a common fire, because no one knew that due to this explosion 5% radioactive material has gone into the atmosphere. Firefighters reached on the spot. They tried to extinguish the fire with the help of water, but this fire was not going to be extinguished, because it was not a common fire, but a graphite fire, which was not so easy to extinguish. Immediately after the incident, the entire city of Pripyat was evacuated day and night, where about 50,000 people lived at that time. After declaring an emergency, the Soviet Union arranged several hundred buses, which took the people of this city to Slavic City in Chernobyl. The work of extinguishing this fire continued for the next 10 days. More than 5,000 tons of sand, soil, and such things were thrown which can be controlled on fire. Finally, after 10 days, this fire was extinguished, but for the next few days, continuous radioactive gases went into the atmosphere. The firefighters who were extinguishing the fire got sick due to radioactive gases, and some people died in the coming days, and some people died in the coming months. At first, the Soviet Union wanted to suppress the news of this incident, because it was the time of the Cold War, and this news could have badly ruined the impression of the Soviet Union. But this secret could not be hidden for long. After 36 hours of the explosion, on April 28th, the Swedish radiation monitoring station saw that the level of radiation in the air was continuously increasing, and these radiations were coming from Ukraine. For this reason, the Soviet government had to keep the matter in front of the world.